What if I told you that one of the most interesting luxury cars on the road isn't the loudest, fastest, or most aggressive? It doesn't need a huge engine to get attention. It doesn't need an exotic badge, and it certainly doesn't need to shout, "Look at me." Instead, the Lexus ES does something much more difficult. It makes luxury feel effortless, but behind its calm appearance are several clever details that many people never notice. Today, we're looking at 5 unique things about the Lexus ES that make this sedan surprisingly special. And number 5 might completely change the way you think about luxury cars. When people hear the word luxury car, they often imagine expensive European sedans, powerful engines, complicated technology, and dramatic styling. But Lexus has always approached luxury from a slightly different direction. The ES is a perfect example. It isn't designed primarily to impress you with speed. Instead, it focuses on something many drivers eventually realize is more valuable. How does the car make you feel every day? The ES is built around comfort, refinement, quietness, quality, and long-term usability. And that's exactly why it's most interesting features aren't always obvious from the outside. So let's start with number 5. Number 5. The ES is luxury without trying too hard. Look at the Lexus ES from a distance. It has the proportions of a traditional luxury sedan. Long hood, elegant roofline, comfortable looking cabin, and depending on the generation and trim, a distinctive Lexus grille. But here's the interesting part. The ES isn't trying to look like a race car. It's not screaming for attention. That's intentional. The ES occupies an interesting position in the luxury market because it combines premium design with an unusually relaxed personality. Think about it. Some luxury cars communicate power through aggressive styling. Others communicate status through enormous wheels and dramatic bodywork. The ES takes another approach. It says, you don't need to prove anything. And that philosophy becomes even more obvious once you get inside. The cabin is designed to make the driver and passengers feel comfortable rather than overwhelmed. You may find premium materials, carefully designed controls, supportive seats, and excellent attention to detail. But perhaps the most important luxury feature is something you can't photograph: silence. A luxury car doesn't have to constantly remind you that it's expensive. Sometimes, luxury is simply driving down the highway and realizing how little noise is entering the cabin. And that brings us to something Lexus has become famous for. Number 4. The ES treats quietness like a luxury feature. Imagine driving on a highway. You're traveling at a normal cruising speed. Outside, there's wind, there's tire noise, there are trucks passing you, there's traffic everywhere. But inside the cabin, everything feels calmer. This is one of the defining characteristics of the Lexus ES. Lexus has historically placed enormous importance on reducing unwanted noise, vibration, and harshness. Engine noise, road noise, wind noise, even the small vibrations that you normally don't think about. Why does this matter? Because your brain notices noise, even when you're not consciously paying attention to it. Constant vibration and road noise can make a long journey feel exhausting. Reduce those distractions, and suddenly the same journey feels easier. This is particularly useful for people who spend a lot of time commuting or traveling long distances. And there's another interesting psychological effect. When a car is quiet, you often perceive it as being more expensive. That's because quietness creates an impression of control and refinement. The Lexus ES doesn't necessarily need to accelerate violently to feel premium. It can simply glide. And that philosophy becomes particularly interesting when we talk about the ES's powertrain choices. Number 3. The hybrid ES is about efficiency without sacrificing comfort. One of the most interesting things about the Lexus ES is the availability of hybrid powertrains in various generations and markets. And Lexus has been developing hybrid technology for decades. But here's what makes the ES hybrid concept interesting. It's not simply about saving fuel. It's about changing the entire character of the car. A hybrid powertrain can combine an internal combustion engine with electric motors. At lower speeds, the vehicle can sometimes operate using electric power under appropriate conditions. When more power is required, the gasoline engine can contribute, and during deceleration, the system can recover some energy that would otherwise be lost as heat through braking. That energy can then be stored in the hybrid battery and used later. So instead of thinking, I'm driving a hybrid, you can simply think, I'm driving a smooth luxury sedan. That's the clever part. The technology works in the background. And for many drivers, that's exactly what they want. They don't want to constantly manage the technology. They want the car to do its job. There is also an important lesson here. Modern luxury isn't necessarily about having the biggest engine. Sometimes, it's about using technology intelligently. to deliver the experience you actually want: smoothness, quietness, efficiency, and predictable performance. But the next feature is even more interesting because it explains why Lexus has developed such a strong reputation for long-term ownership. Number 2. The EAS is built around the idea of long-term dependability. Here's something that makes the Lexus ES particularly interesting. Its appeal isn't only about what happens during the first year of ownership. It's about what happens years later. Lexus has built its reputation around quality and dependability, and the ES has been an important part of that reputation. This doesn't mean every Lexus ES is perfect or that maintenance is unnecessary. No car is. Every vehicle contains components that eventually wear out. Tires wear out, brakes wear out, fluids need servicing, batteries can eventually need replacement, electronic components can fail. But the ES has traditionally focused heavily on engineering and build quality, and that creates an interesting ownership proposition. Imagine buying a luxury sedan. You enjoy the beautiful interior, you enjoy the quiet cabin, you enjoy the smooth ride. But then, after several years, you're still using it as a normal everyday car. That's powerful. Because the best luxury isn't something you only enjoy for a few months. It's something that continues to make your daily life better. And this is where the ES differs from the stereotype of a luxury car. Luxury doesn't have to mean fragile. It can mean comfortable and usable at the same time. And there's one more thing that makes this particularly interesting. The ES has been around for a surprisingly long time. Number 1, the ES has survived by evolving, not reinventing itself. This may be the most interesting thing about the Lexus ES. The ES isn't a brand new idea. Its history goes back decades. Over the years, Lexus has repeatedly updated the model with new designs, new technology, new powertrains, improved safety systems, and more sophisticated interiors. But the fundamental mission has remained remarkably consistent. Comfort, refinement, quietness, luxury, everyday usability. That's important because automotive trends change extremely quickly. One decade, manufacturers are obsessed with horsepower. Another decade, it's touchscreen technology. Then, electrification. Then driver assistance. Then connected vehicles. But the basic human desire for a comfortable car doesn't change very much. You still want a good seat. You still want a quiet cabin. You still want a smooth ride. You still want confidence when you're driving. And you still want the car too. Feel good after you've been behind the wheel for an hour. The ES has essentially evolved around those permanent needs. And that's why its design philosophy has remained relevant. It doesn't have to be the fastest car in the segment. It doesn't have to be the most dramatic. It simply has to be really good at being a luxury sedan. Now let's put all 5 things together. Number 5, luxury without trying too hard. Number 4, quietness treated as a genuine luxury feature. Number 3, hybrid technology focused on smoothness and efficiency. Number 2, a strong emphasis on long-term dependability. And number 1, a design philosophy that has evolved over decades without losing its core purpose. Put all of these together and you begin to understand what makes the ES interesting. It's not necessarily trying to win the same battle as every other luxury sedan. It isn't saying, look how fast I am. It's saying, look how easy I can make your journey feel. And that difference is bigger than it sounds. Because when you're young, you might judge a car by acceleration. You might care about horsepower. You might care about how aggressive it looks. But after spending years driving, your priorities can change. You start noticing the seat, the road noise, the ride quality, the air conditioning, the visibility, the reliability, the amount of stress you feel after a long journey. Suddenly, a car that simply makes everyday life easier becomes extremely attractive. And that's where the Lexus ES has always had a fascinating advantage. The Lexus ES may not be the car that immediately gets everyone's attention. And honestly, that's part of its charm. It represents a different definition of luxury. Luxury can be performance. Luxury can be technology. Luxury can be extravagant design. But luxury can also be something much simpler. It can be getting into your car after a long day and immediately feeling comfortable. It can be driving for hours without feeling exhausted. It can be having a cabin that remains calm while the world outside is chaotic. It can be knowing that the car was designed not just to impress you today, but to remain useful for years. And perhaps that's the biggest lesson behind the Lexus ES. The best luxury isn't always the feature you notice first. Sometimes, it's the feature you don't notice at all. The quiet cabin, the smooth power delivery, the comfortable seat, the predictable driving experience. The feeling that everything is simply working together. That's what makes the Lexus ES so interesting. It's not necessarily trying to make every drive exciting. It's trying to make every drive better. And in a world where cars are becoming increasingly complicated, that simple idea may be one of the most valuable forms of luxury. So, If someone asks you what makes the Lexus ES special, don't just talk about the badge. Talk about the philosophy. Quiet, luxury, everyday comfort, intelligent technology, long-term usability. And that's exactly why the Lexus ES continues to be a fascinating luxury sedan. If you enjoyed this breakdown, stay tuned for more videos exploring the hidden details, clever engineering, and surprising stories behind some of the world's most interesting cars.